Canary by Cloud9 and 3/4. Chapter 16. Make your mark. What a turn of events! Present Mike screamed across the arena. Koji Koda! His quirk animates! He can talk to and command any animal he wishes! Well, he sure is lucky that someone can keep their bird in check! Midoriya tried not to flinch at her suspicion. I'm assuming it means you. Shinso smirked as Midoriya clambered down from his cavalry battle positioning, grinning broadly. And with that, the second round is officially over, continued President Mike. Now let's take a look at who our top 4 teams are! Midoriya pulled off the 10 million point headband as he gazed around at the ice-covered stadium. In first place, Team Midoriya! Who would have thought that the team with only one Hero Corps student in it would come out on top? Soon to be 3. Shinso grinned as Hatsume frantically pulled her various gadgets from him, muttering maniacally about her next move in the sports festival. In second place, Team Bakugo! Yaku, you're freaking dead! Gachan yelled from across the pitch, grasping his remaining headbands with one hand and letting off menacing explosions from the other. That's no good! Midoriya sighed with shaking hands. And third place, we have Team Todoroki! So close, yet so far! And now Todoroki too glared at Midoriya's team from a distance. And in fourth place is Team Uraraka, scraping in ahead of Team Tetsu despite being frozen in place. Being able to nab points without moving sure was helpful. Thank you for helping us, Midoriya signed, turning to Koda as he signed. Thank you for helping me, Koda quickly replied, now he'd gotten over the shock of having attention drawn to him by President Mike. We're like team voice clicks, Midoriya smiled. And all of us communicate via sign language, Shinso smirked. And have been mute at some point or another, added Midoriya. Something is seriously wrong with our society. That was when Siren swooped down and snatched the 10 million point headband from where it had been hanging loosely around Midoriya's arm. What's your bird doing now? Shinso questioned, raising an eyebrow. Siren simply jumped at the 3 of them. Hatsume had hurried off with her babies already and took off towards the stands. She's leaving, Shinso acknowledged, watching the bird disappear off with the headband trailing behind her. She's leaving with the 10 million points. 10,615,000, actually, Midoriya corrected, doing nothing but watch her disappear. Well, that's gone then. These 4 valiant teams will advance on to the final round, President Mike proclaimed. Oh, and what's this? We have an odd number! That means one member of our 5th place crew, Team Tetsu, will be joining us! We should get out of here before something bad happens, Shinso warned Midoriya, glancing over to the distant figure of Gachan, grinding his teeth and glaring menacingly at them. Now, let's take an hour lunch break before we start the afternoon festivities! See you soon! Come on. Shinso grabbed a hold of Midoriya's wrist and dragged it towards the student exit. Midoriya waved goodbye to a confused Koda as he went, not bothering to protest against Shinso as the two hurried away from the arena. They joined the steady stream of students already making their exit. After dropping off the remaining headband, they hurried toward the cafeteria unnoticed. The specialized exit from the arena led the students away from the crowds of the sports festival and back to the main school. At least that was what normally happens. If, however, the audience was particularly keen and were fast enough to get them from the stands, they could hover either side of the barricaded pathway for the competitors. It rarely happened, particularly for the first years. However, it seemed to be just one of those years. Come on, Canary! yelled someone from the crowds. "We know you're in there!" added another with equal enthusiasm. Midoriya trailed close behind Shinso, ducking his head, desperate not to be seen. President Mike had purposely not brought up the factor of Canary in the last round. Of course, there were only 2 students who remained that fit the bill for the radio star at all: Midoriya and Shinso. Other than Hatsume, who was female anyway, the 2 of them were the only ones not in the hero course. So it wouldn't be hard to assume that if Canary had made it into the finals, then it was obviously one of the 2 of them. Then again, Canary could have not made it through, but President Mike had thought of that possibility too. As Midoriya and Shinso filed away from the stadium, he could still hear his teacher's voice ringing out. "Just a heads up for you all," he began. "Thank Team Tetsu for letting their leader from Class 1B through into the final round. Yeah! What sportsmanship! Hey, Eraser, don't you think it's weird that only 4 competitors remain that aren't in your class?" Not at all. Team 1B had a good strategy, overarching the entire competition, but it fell through in the end. I don't think many of us are surprised by this outcome. But what about the students not from the hero course? Having 3 is certainly out of the ordinary. Speak for yourself. 2 of them are from your class. My general studies class, you mean? What about your radio kid? Hey, Midoriya, said Shinso, stopping in his tracks and gazing back to the stadium as Midoriya walked right into him. They're talking about us. Well, we've seen his bird. Not sure about Canary himself, though. Maybe next year, but we'll just have to wait and see. Shinso frowned. Interesting phrasing. Midoriya hesitated, mulling it over in his mind as President Mike continued to yell about the availabilities of food for the members of the audience and for himself. It's to throw off suspicion, I think. It's technically not a lie. He said he wasn't sure if you would reveal yourself. Hey, keep moving, would you? Exclaimed a kid from another class. Midoriya jumped, sighed, sorry, and then ushered Shinso forward. They had been blocking up the pathway by standing still and signing to each other. Consequently, they weren't able to communicate again until they were finally in the lunch queue. Midoriya had pulled his headphones back over his ears, blocking out the consistently loud chatter. He'd yet to put his support item into proper use, and with President Mike's words, he wondered if he would be able to at all. Shinso tapped on his shoulder. What do you want to eat? I'm not really that hungry. You should eat, Shinso insisted as they reached the front of the line. You need the energy. He ended up ordering 2 of whatever he'd chosen. Midoriya hadn't been paying attention, not that he could hear what Shinso had ordered anyway with the headphones on. Shinso thrust a tray in his hands. Midoriya wobbled and barely managed to keep the bowl of steaming rice balanced. Shinso ended up paying for both of them. They often did that, taking alternate goes to pay. It made life just that little bit simpler. Eventually, they sat down in the emptiest corner they could find. Midoriya gazed around the dining hall. It's so strange, seeing everyone here in their PE kit rather than normal uniform. Shinso raised an eyebrow at him. That's what you think is strange? But it is! We're the 2 general studies students competing in the final round of one of the biggest sporting events out there. And that's what you pick up as strange. Midoriya smiled meekly, poking at his rice with his chopsticks. You're nervous, Shinso sighed. He had to do it twice because Midoriya didn't look up the first time he said it. Midoriya just shrugged. Putting down his chopsticks, he replied, It's hard not to be, I suppose. Shinso hesitated, clearly uncertain of how to reply. He took a large bite of his food. That was one of the many benefits of sign language. You could very much talk with your mouth full. What was that thing Cockatoo is always saying to you on the radio? Midoriya furrowed his brow, unsure of what Shinso could have meant. Damn it, what was it? He murmured after swallowing his mouthful. Right, you're not nervous. You're excited. Midoriya felt a small smile spreading across his face. He tended to imagine the voice of whoever was conversing in sign language with him, and he couldn't help but think of Present Mike's when Shinso said those words, which was rather funny. Such an eccentric voice really didn't match Shinso at all. Midoriya shoved some rice in his mouth to stop himself from laughing. "Thank you." Shinso blinked at him, clearly a little bewildered as to why such a simple phrase cheered him up so much. So he just nodded, stared at his food for a moment or so, and then decided to follow Midoriya's lead and actually start eating. "Hey, excuse me!" Midoriya and Shinso looked up. Midoriya with his mouth full to the brim with rice, and Shinso with his next bite halfway there. Midoriya pulled off his headphones, letting them hang loose around his neck as he frowned at the guy who had made the sudden exclamation. The entire cafeteria gradually fell silent as someone clambered on top of a table right in the middle of the room. Some of his friends laughed and pulled at his ankles in hopes to get him down, but he was having none of it. "Right! So," he continued, clapping his hands briefly to grasp the attention of anyone who would fail to notice him the first time around. "We all know Canary's out of the sports festival." Midoriya gulped and Shinso dropped his rice back in his bowl. "So come on, man! Tell us who the heck you are!" he exclaimed. Midoriya didn't recognize him, although he could have been from Class 1D or perhaps the business or support courses. "You can't just hold out on us for another year! Come on! We know you're in here!" One of his friends tried pulling him down off the table again, but he wrestled free. "Come on, Canary! Give us a wave!" Midoriya tore his eyes away and returned to his food. Shinso glanced between him and the guy on the table, who was now trying to start the chants, "We want Canary!" This was stupid. Ridiculous, even. Midoriya felt his cheeks flush red with anger. How dare he do something like that? And then the chanting stopped with a yell and a clatter. Midoriya looked up in surprise as the hall rang out with laughter. The student was still standing on the table, but he'd accidentally kicked an empty tray to the floor in panic as he tried to duck and evade the swooping figure of a little green bird. Midoriya probably should have found some way to call her off, but he couldn't help his growing smile as Siren continuously dive-bombed the guy, the red and white headband she had previously stolen still trailing along behind her like a victory flag as she jumped furiously. "I love that stupid little bird," Shinso whispered, shaking his head in disbelief. He'd only known her for a few hours and she'd already won him over. How Siren hadn't been bought by someone else before Midoriya was beyond him. When he had finally managed to get off the table, everyone cheered and Siren took off jubilantly into the air, now doing triumphant laps of the dining hall. "Maybe we should stop her," Shinso pointed out. "Maybe," Midoriya replied. But they still did nothing. Eventually, Siren flew off into the corridors of UA after a failed capture attempt, with the 10 million point headband still stubbornly in tow. With that chaos over and done with, Shinso and Midoriya tidied away their trays and hurried back towards the stadium. It was amazing how quickly an hour could pass with the weight of their future bearing down on them. But considering the wording of Present Mike's announcement, it's unclear as to whether the up-and-coming radio star Canary did advance to the final round of this year's UA Sports Festival. Midoriya blinked at the reporter standing right by the student entrance to the arena. Although the fact remains that somewhere in this huddle of students now returning to the stadium for this afternoon's events, Canary still remains and might possibly still use this year's sports festival as a chance to reveal his true identity, perhaps in the extra events before the tournament round. Shinso nudged him with a sly smirk. Midoriya shot a look back at him and then grinned widely at the camera before the reporter, hoping the slightest glimpse of his face would momentarily appear in the footage for the world to perhaps look back on. "It's almost time for the last round!" Present Mike cried excitedly as Midoriya and Shinso followed the other students back into the spotlight. "But before that, good news for everyone who didn't make the finals! Since this is a sports festival, we've prepared some super fun side games everyone can participate in! After the fun! The first years gathered around in the center of the arena with the 16 finalists, including Midoriya and Shinso, stood near the front, close to the stage that Midnight was standing on. She was holding a large yellow box labeled Lots. "Come closer and we'll draw lots to see who you're up against," she explained. "Then enjoy the pleasure of the recreational games before we start. The 16 finalists have the option of participating in those activities or sitting it out to prepare for battle. I'm sure you all want to conserve your stamina." Getting down off her raised platform, she marched confidently straight toward Midoriya. "I'll start with the first place team." Midoriya felt his muscles seize up as the cameras turned towards him, and Midnight thrust the box in his direction. She saw his panic and smiled warmly, shaking the box about a bit. Swallowing his fear, Midoriya somehow managed to raise his stiff arm and reach inside the box, pulling out a small piece of folded paper. But before he could open it, Midnight snatched it back off him, unfolded it herself, nodded, and then turned to Shinso, who then followed the same pattern of choosing an opponent without knowing who it could have been. Midnight did this for all of Midoriya's team, as well as all of Kachan's, but then no one else. There was a terribly tense silence as she put her hand to her ear, communicating with whoever was on the other side of her earpiece, hidden beneath her mane of hair. "Take a look at the bracket, my dears," she exclaimed once the organization was finally over. Said bracket then appeared on the screens surrounding the stadium, finally revealing who would be facing who. "These are your opponents." The crowd cheered, but Midoriya blocked them out without needing to pull his headphones over his head again. All he could hear was a faint buzzing noise as he stared up at the screen. Canary. Wait, who was that?
"Looks like I'll be facing you in the semifinals."
Shinso scoffed, his voice cutting through the madness.
"Shame. Would have been better if 2 general study students made it all the way to the final match."
He let his eyes drift over to whoever Shinso was facing. He was the first match against Jiro.
"She doesn't know your quirk, right?"
Midoriya questioned.
"Not that I'm aware of,"
Shinso confirmed.
"Sorry, Koda, but you're going down!"
Mina exclaimed assuredly. Koda looked about as nervous as Midoriya. Although Midoriya secretly hoped he wouldn't be using Siren this time around, he'd hate for Mina to milk her.
"Oh, hey, wait! Midoriya?"
said Mina, hurrying over to him.
"I didn't realize you were in the finals!"
"How could you not?"
Shinso gaped, his tone of voice dripping with more venom than Mina could ever hope to imitate.
"We won the cavalry battle."
Mina frowned at him.
"Yeah, but I didn't really realize it was this Midoriya! No offense."
Midoriya furrowed his brow. What did she mean by that?
"Ah, wait! You're that Midoriya! The Quirkless mute one, right?"
Interjected that blonde electric guy who had now appeared beside Mina.
"Hey man, I'm taking Canary!"
He finished, holding out his hand for Midoriya to shake. Midoriya would have taken it if Shinso hadn't knocked his hand out of the way in the last second.
"He'll just shock you,"
he signed, glaring at the hero students as he did so. Kaminari exchanged a glance with Mina, pulling a weird face. He turned back to Shinso.
"You must be Shinso, right? That general studies guy from the halls that other day."
Shinso glared at him.
"I'm sick and tired of being just that general studies guy. And I'm sure Midoriya is pretty fed up of being the quirkless mute one."
Midoriya didn't meet Kaminari's gaze as Shinso said those words.
"It's time for us to make our mark. Come on, Midoriya."
He snarled and began to march away, his head in his pockets. Midoriya hesitated, looking back at the small gathering of hero students with a weak, apologetic smile. But Kaminari, where had Midoriya heard that name before?
"Hey, if it makes you feel any better, I'll just be giving you a quick shock and it'll be over with,"
Kaminari said confidently, holding up his hand with a crackle of electricity to demonstrate. Midoriya's eyes grew wide. Rebecca squealed excitedly, bouncing up and down as she and Midoriya walked up to school. This sounds so cool!
Well, it's a little tricky to get my head around.
Midoriya had stammered in reply.
Everyone's quirks have their difficulties, Rebecca insisted. I mean, I have to sleep with mittens so I don't float anything. Ida has to drink gallons of orange juice to get his engines working properly. And there's a guy in my class called Canary. He has an electric quirk which short circuits his brain if he uses too much voltage at once.
Oh! Midoriya let a smile grow across his expression. Kaminari's quickly faded. What? He frowned.
Hatsumi! Make us hover again, quickly!
Midoriya had cried during the cavalry battle. What the heck? Shinzo gaped, watching every other team cry out in pain as they were shocked by Kaminari's quirk.
We're not grounded,
Midoriya hastily explained.
That means we can't be electrocuted. As long as we keep our feet off the ground, he can't hurt us.
Oh! Midoriya's smile grew wider, and without an answer, he turned on his heel and ran after Shinzo. He could distantly hear Kaminari's voice as he hurried away.
Should I be worried?
Maybe he should have been, but for once, Midoriya wasn't. As President Mike's voice continued to bellow across the stadium, Shinzo and Midoriya were sitting side by side in one of the waiting rooms with Midoriya's sketch of the tournament bracket laid out before them. Shinzo sighed. Everyone's so focused on looking for you during the side games that they've missed the bigger picture. Midoriya stared at the piece of paper before him. He'd started annotating it, and it had gotten a little manic. He'd also just realized Shinzo's handwriting was near too illegible.
What did you do to my bird drawing?
Midoriya frowned. I gave it talons. Shinzo grinned.
Whatever they are, they're not talons. They look like arms or crooked forks.
Shut up, they're amazing. Look, Siren has her headband now. Let me borrow your red pen so I can add the numbers.
Wait, no. That's 10 million. It was 10,615,000.
Technicalities.
We won with those technicalities.
We would have won with just 10 million. Midoriya couldn't think of an adequate response, so Shinzo instead started doodling elsewhere on the paper instead. Midoriya grabbed his red pen back and immediately scribbled out Shinzo's addition of "and then I win" to their strategy sheet. Are you saying I'm not going to win? Shinzo queried with a cocked eyebrow.
No! I'm not! I'm just...
You didn't let me draw the arrow to say that you'd be in the final, and it's going to be one of us, so...
It might not be!
Midoriya protested, waving his arms about frantically as he spoke.
I might not beat Ida, or you might not defeat Todoroki!
As soon as they speak to me, it's over. Shinzo retorted smugly. And I haven't used my quirk enough for anyone to figure that out yet.
They might after your fight against Jiro,
Midoriya pointed out.
Or President Mike might announce your quirk. He's been doing that for the hero students so everyone understands what they can do, so...
My pessimism is rubbing off on you. Shinzo sighed, sinking back in his chair. Midoriya pouted at him.
Oh, well, if I get to the final, it's not going to end... well...
Because you think Bakugo's going to be against you. Realized Shinzo, glancing back at the arrow on the brackets. They'd been debating for a while as to who would most likely beat who. Eventually, it was concluded that it would be Bakugo coming out on top and making it to the final round. Biting his lip, Midoriya picked up his pen and added a new note next to Shinzo's crossed out one. And then I die. Shinzo snapped up his own pen and quickly drew a line through it. Midoriya slammed his forehead on the table. Shinzo pulled the paper out from underneath him. He was busy adding random snarky comments and adding to Midoriya's scribbles when Midoriya decided enough was enough, knocking the pen from Shinzo's hand before he was able to finish writing, "When is a shadow not dark?" beneath Tokoyami's quirk name. Now it just read, when is a Tokoyami? Midoriya, you're going to be fine, Shinso insisted as Midoriya picked up the red pen and started writing along the top of the page, which just turned into an indecipherable squiggle by the end. Shinso confiscated the red pen. I am going to die, Midoriya signed for the second time that day. I'll make sure of it if you keep being this infuriating, Shinso threatened. Midoriya narrowed his eyes at him and then reached for the only pen that remained in his possession. In the middle of the page, he wrote, How to get into the Hero Course 101. 1. Don't die! Good, that's an improvement. Shinso smirked before picking up his own pen and adding, 2. Kill Magago! Midoriya quickly crossed that out and then took the red pen back and crossed it out a second time before finishing with 2. Don't let anyone die. Shinso grinned. The final thing written on that mess of a strategy sheet was Basic Hero Essentials before Midoriya folded it up and shoved it, along with the pens, back in his backpack. See you in the semifinals then, said Shinso, wandering towards the door. No, back in the stands after you've finished, Midoriya frowned. Shinso rolled his eyes as he left. You know what I mean. Midoriya just waved as Shinso walked out of sight, his footsteps echoing through the cold concrete corridors. Once even his shadow had completely faded, Midoriya pulled the strap of his backpack further up his shoulder and ran in the opposite direction. Each of the 11 first-year classes, A to K, had their own set of seats in the stands, separated from the main audience. They really did have front-row seats. There were 2 sets of stairs leading up to them, one from either side, and then a long corridor that ran along behind the seats. Each class were only separated from each other by thin stone walls. Midoriya sprinted as fast as he could past the back of Class 1A's seating area and didn't slow down at 1B's either, only skidding to a halt at his own section with the rest of Class 1C. Midoriya! Exclaimed Oshi as he hurried into view. Where have you been? She insisted. He was about to sign an excuse in reply, but she waved it off. Rhetorical question. It's not like I'm good enough at sign language to understand you anyway, she sighed. But you were almost late. Come on, Quirkless Wonder, exclaimed Gisho. His French had grown a little longer again, but it still looked like someone had put a bowl on his head and cut around it. Shinso often pointed that out in their secret sign conversations. We save you a seat near the front. Yeah, you deserve it making it into the finals, added Kisho's twin sister, Kana. Not that he'll last long, Kaneka protested, her cat tail twitching as she spoke. He's against the electric dude, remember? And they're back to talking as if Midoriya wasn't there. With a sigh, he trudged down the steps and fell into the seat furthest from everybody else, plonking his rucksack on the chair next to him to save a space for Shinso. Hey, sports fans, are you ready? President Mike suddenly exclaimed. It made Midoriya jump! He pulled his headphones on to block out some of the sound as the crowd erupted into cheers. It was much louder now that he was up close to them. After all the action you've already seen, it's time for the real battles to begin! Can you feel the excitement? Yes, he could still hear him through his headphones. That's how loud it was. Midoriya felt sorry for all the members of the audience who had been suffering through this ordeal the entire time. Our competitors are on their own now. Sometimes heroes have only themselves to rely on. Heart, strength, skill, wisdom, courage. They'll have to use all of these things to rise to the top. Midoriya gulped, gazing down at the concrete arena before him. Shinso was down there, standing alone as he waited for the match to begin. And I know it sounds so cheesy, but remember that it's the taking part that counts. The sheer determination of our competitors is what sets them apart from the others. Those who truly try their very hardest are the ones who deserve their place in UA's Hero Course. Midoriya wondered how much of that was directed at him as he unfolded his strategy sheet once more, his hands struggling to hold his pen steady. This match would be over quickly. no matter who came out on top.
But humor meets are long enough! Let's finally get to the good stuff and not delay these finals any longer!
From each corner of the pitch, columns of flames dramatically erupted, and Midoriya's mentor appeared on the screen facing him. There were a few drones buzzing around the place. One flew to one side of the pitch and one to the other, zooming in on the two participants of the first battle. The video they caught was shown on the screen next to the one showing present Mike, so the audience could easily see what was going on, close up or far away.
Welcome, Outburst Fighters!
President Mike exclaimed, his face disappearing to reveal images of both Jiro and Shinso, and a large versus sign between them.
No way those earplugs get tangled in her brain! It's Kyoko Jiro from the Hero Course!
The camera panned over to Jiro as she marched confidently into the arena. Midoriya didn't miss the way she twitched her brow when President Mike made that comment.
Versus Hitoshi Shinso from General Studies, who really hasn't done anything to stand out yet.
Midoriya's heart was beating so loud that he started considering taking his headphones off so it could be drowned out by the crowd's roar.
The rules are simple. Immobilize your opponents or force them out of the ring. You can also win by getting the other person to cry uncle. Ready? Begin!
So, you can just give up, alright? Shinso glared as soon as President Mike's ready echoed across the stadium. Jiro pulled a bewildered face at him, but she didn't reply. I need this more than you do. Can't you lose for me?
Begin!
Jiro scoffed, stepping forward, about to charge. Fat chance. You don't... Shinso smiled. And that's it. I'll win. She stopped, her earplugs dropping to her side limply as her eyes blinked over.
Hey! Hey!
President Mike called out.
What's going on here? The fight has just begun, but Kyoko Jiro is completely frozen. And what's with that look on her face? Could this be a quirk at work?
Midoriya felt kind of bad for Jiro, but she was already in the hero course. Shinso deserved this win. This is a perfect example of why the entrance exam is irrational. Midoriya frowned, knocking his headphones off his ears. It was Eraserhead, the last man to get into the hero course through the sports festival. Since we're on to the individual matches, I have some information compiled about our final competitors.
He gulped. Did that mean Mr. Aizawa was holding information on Midoriya too?
Shinso failed the practical exam to get into the hero course. Since he also applied for general studies, he probably figured that would happen. Eraserhead continued to talk about the entrance exam, about the robots, and Shinso's disadvantage. On the screen, Midoriya could see Shinso grit his teeth in frustration and then finally spit some words at Jiro. Her starry-eyed expression remained as such as she slowly turned and began to hobble away, dragging her feet as she went.
What? Huh?
President Mike exclaimed melodramatically.
What's this? Jiro was obeying him!
Midoriya turned to the other members of Class 1C, who continued to gape down at the two competitors with wide eyes.
Hitoshi Shinso is correct! Brainwashing! When his opponent answers a question, it flips a switch in their mind, forcing them to do whatever he says! Not every question does it, though! He only brainwashes when he wants to!
Midoriya blinked up at President Mike. Oh no! He explained Shinso's quirk. He looked back down at his strategy sheet. Shinso was against Todoroki next. This might not work out quite the way they'd planned. I know I said his quirk seemed creepy as hell, Kaneko whispered from the back of Class 1C stands. But that's actually pretty amazing. Midoriya smiled. He sure was an incredible quirk.
And Jiro's walked right out of the ring!
The hero student stopped, blinking, the light returning to her eyes, and she glanced frantically around her. She turned on her heel and shouted panically at Shinso as Midnight exclaimed, "Jiro is out of bounds. Shinso advances to the next match."
Come on, guys, let's congratulate him.
Kisho exclaimed, leaping to his feet. Not everyone followed. Even Midoriya for a moment, because he was so stunned that any of his classmates would actually think to do such a thing. Eventually, he got up too and ran after the 5 who'd left. Jiro was ushered back into the ring, and both her and Shinso bowed in respect as Midoriya and the others rushed out of sight. He caught a glimpse of Jiro's expression, though. She was frustrated, that much was obvious, but her sly smile made Midoriya realize that their budding friendship wasn't quite over yet. In fact, it was only just beginning. As Shinso walked down from the stage and towards the exit, Midoriya and the others had made it to the stands right above him. Some of the pro heroes laughed as Matsumoto called out to him,
"You were awesome out there, Shinso!"
Oh, she smiled and waved at him. "We're proud of you."
"You didn't tell us you were that good,"
added Tachibana. Kisho laughed.
"Yeah, you're the star of our program." "I can't believe you've only used your quirk once before on Kaneko," said Watanabe. "Where were you when we needed her to shut up, eh?"
Shinso smiled at them. A real, genuine smile. Midoriya leaned over the wall so he could definitely see him. "Look, I don't think you're a villain at all."
"Listen to them!"
exclaimed Matsumoto, unaware that Midoriya was talking too. Midoriya turned to the pro heroes behind him, whilst Shinso strained to hear too. He decided to sign their words to make sure Shinso knew what they were saying.
"With a quirk like that, it would be very simple to capture dangerous villains. I wish I had it."
"I can't believe they stuck him in general studies. Those idiots!"
"Well, there are a ton of applicants each year. I guess sometimes people slip through the cracks."
"Shinso, did you get that?"
Matsumoto beamed.
"It's great," added Watanabe. "They think you're incredible."
"You go next, Canary." Shinso signed to Midoriya,
Grinning widely.
"What did he say?"
Tachibana questioned Midoriya.
"He can't answer, you idiot!"
Snapped Oshi. She turned back to Shinso.
"Come on up and talk to us. We'll help you strategize for your next match."
Midoriya waved at him one last time, and the 6 of them finally hurried back to their seating area. Shinso reappeared moments later, and they all cheered. Well, Midoriya just clapped. It had been a while since Shinso looked so happy. Perhaps the last was when Midoriya spoke to him for the first time.
"Too much standing around!"
Midoriya actually yelped that present like sudden exclamation, which made the rest of his class laugh as Shinso pushed his bag off the seat next to him and sat down.
"Now, welcome to the ring, our next players!"
"Whoever wins this is your next opponent," Midoriya reminded Shinso. "We already know who's going to win."
"Has got skills, but at the expense of some really creepy elbows! From the Emerald Course, it's Hunter Zero!"
"Cruel," Kana muttered.
"Versus someone who's been front-running this entire competition so far! He's way too strong for his own good and rightfully got onto the hero course based on recommendations! It's Shadow Todoroki!"
Midoriya leaned forward, desperate to see as much as possible. Yes, he was pretty sure Todoroki would come out on top. If Shinso was defeated, then there was a possibility that Midoriya would come to face him too. He needed every asset he could get. Analyzing Todoroki's quirk was his first step.
And now for the second match of the finals! Ready? Begin!
The match ended in less than 20 seconds. Midoriya was very much not leaning forward after that. In fact, both he and Shinso had their backs pressed right against their sheets in shock, edging away from the bombardment of ice as much as they possibly could. "You're going to die," Midoriya slowly signed. Shinso didn't reply. "Zero has been immobilized. Todoroki advances to the second round," Midnight announced. There was no cheer at first. Everyone was, and in some cases rather literally, frozen. As some of the audience started yelling, Nice try. To Todoroki's victim, Midoriya leaned around the ice to see Todoroki began to melted. So he was right. Todoroki could use fire. It would make sense as the son of the flame hero Endeavor for him to have such a power. Everything about Todoroki seemed to scream that he had a dual ability, half hot, half cold. And the ice, it only covered the left side of Todoroki's body now that he had used it. Yes, an equal split down his middle, like his hair and eyes, and that scar. Something was wrong here. Very wrong. Why hadn't Todoroki used his fire offensively? Or even defensively? It could have been such a huge asset in the previous rounds. Midoriya bit his lip as President Mike announced that they would have to take a short break as they removed the sheer volume of ice. But after that, you're up. Shinso signed. Midoriya could see his hand movements in his peripheral vision. But he just couldn't take his eyes away from Todoroki. For some reason, in that moment, he just looked so sad to him. And Midoriya knew what that felt like. He had to do this. He had to beat Kaminari. And then whoever came out on top of Ida's and Hatsume's match too. If Todoroki defeated Shinso, then Midoriya had to be the person to fight him next. He just wanted to help him somehow. Midoriya had never been very good with words, but maybe things were different now. Good luck, Midoriya, stammered Oshi as he got to his feet, struggling to get past the ice that had obstructed his way out. Yep, good luck, repeated Matsumoto. He nodded at them and slowly made his way down from the stands. There was no need to hurry. He took a deep breath as he stood waiting in the corridor before the stadium. The air was cold. Midoriya untangled the wire hanging from his headphones and then rearranged the device that had been hiding beneath his shirt for the beginning of the sports festival. Strapping it on top of the fabric, he turned it on and flicked through his arsenal for the one he had prepared for. The song he was so thankful for. One of the ones which started it all. He listened to it far too many times before he heard President Mike's voice ring out halfway through his song.
Welcome back to the finals, everyone! Sorry for that long wait!
Midoriya gulped again. He had been thinking, and no, he wouldn't activate his microphone the first time around. One step at a time.
The insane amount of ice!
Siren! Midoriya exclaimed, turning on his heel to see the Canary sitting before the small pile of cloth that was the headband, which she refused to give back. What are you doing here? I have to go on now. No, you can't help me this time. I have to do this alone. The only match you're allowed to help with is Koda's. Be careful with that. You have to stay here and wait until I get back. Or go and see Shinso, okay? Midoriya insisted, making sure his headphones were fastened securely around his neck. He wasn't going to be wearing them this time around. He didn't need the music. He didn't need the power to last long or be that strong. He practiced this particular ability enough for it to activate quickly and for him to be good at controlling it. But he had his playlist ready just in case something went wrong.
It's time to welcome new competitors!
See you soon, okay? Midoriya said to Siren, and then with one final deep breath, he stepped out into the arena.
It's the ball with the electric personality, Denki Kaminari from the Hero Course Class 1A!
President Mike exclaimed as Midoriya's opponent stepped up onto the pitch, smiling confidently.
Versus our resident genius with some of the highest scores in UA history on our theoretical papers. It's Izuku Midoriya from General Studies Class 1C.
Like I said, it'll be over in 2 seconds. Kaminari exclaimed, giving Midoriya a thumbs up as he reached the top of the stairs to the raised stage. This was it. He was finally here.
Ready!
Like Shinso said, it was time for him to make his mark and go beyond.
Begin!
Plus Ultra.